Boat and tackle setup. There's a couple pre-game is how I'd like to set it up. Is go through your list of things you know you're going to need. My wife and I used to spend hours in the evening time rigging baits, going through things, doing it over and over, to, basically to get better at what we did. Actually, it was a fun excuse to drink some beer and stay up late. With boat setup, there's a couple things you have to have. I've done it without some of these. It's a nightmare. Trust me on this. The main one is your rod holders. You have to have a swivel rod holder. 0 degree or 15 degrees, personal preference. Earlier this year, we caught a fish just under 300 pounds on a rod holder that didn't swivel. I didn't have the drop in. The worst thing ever. It was a nightmare. We got the fish, but Lady Luck was definitely on our side. With the rod holders, location is key, depending on what type of boat you have. Most of the fishing we've ever done is out of a center console. Ideally, you're going to have 2 different rods. Most of the time we fish 2 different rods. Some guys will fish 3. Kind of becomes a nightmare when you have that many rods, but anyway, 2 is ideal. The tip rod is 95 to 98% of the fish I catch comes off what we call the tip rod. And then we have a buoy rod also. Buoy rod is kind of a Hail Mary. Some days it really works out for you, and some days it just gets in the way. The location of the rod holders with a tip rod on a center console. I like to have it just behind the steering wheel on both sides of the boat. Some guys like it a little further, some guys like it a little back. I like it just 6-8 inches, a foot behind where the driver is. Again, as I go through things, you'll understand why. Typically speaking, you have the driver and a reel man, and they can kind of change jobs as needed, and having it something close by really makes it help. On your sport fishers, I like to have that swivel rod holder towards the back of the boat. Depending on what type of setup, rod setup you have. We like to fish the longer rods. To us, it makes it better. Some guys like the shorter stuff, but if you have questions on that, I actually have a good friend of mine, Will, here tonight. He actually has built the rod that you see here. As far as the other major things you have to have, electric reel, you got to have a good plug. If you don't have good connections, you're going to have issues. Any guys that ever fish in saltwater and electronics, they don't go together typically very well. What we have found throughout the whole deal is the one thing that you cannot cheap out on is good tackle. You have a cheap rod that you beat up, guess what's going to happen? If you have bad electrical connections, guess what's going to happen? You cheap out on the wrong swivel, the wrong crimp, it's a nightmare. You put all that effort, all that time, and that money into it, and to shortcut yourself a few dollars here or there. Do it right. A couple of extras that are really helpful. A good bottom machine is key. The first 15 trips, 20 trips we did, it took us 9 or 10 trips we actually caught a fish. Those first 15 or 20, I did it with a bottom machine that could barely read bottom. All we did was look on charts and said, oh, that looks like it's a good spot. That's where we started. Had bites pretty much instantly. It took us 9, 10 trips to figure out how to hook the damn thing. They're finicky. But, like I said, it's the most boring thing you'll do, but when that rod tip goes doink, the boat comes alive. A few people that have fished with me will tell you that when I see a bite, 40 miles offshore, the guy on tending the North Bridge can hear me screaming. It's pretty comical, actually. Terminal tackle. Obviously, you're going to have an electric reel. Some guys, I've seen setups where they do hand cranks. You'll typically see that in your slow currents, like in the Gulf or California. Out here, you're fishing heavy leads. You're doing 6, 7, 8 drops a day. Hey, you want to be macho man and hand crank it? Go for it. I like to press a button. Makes life a lot easier. LP is what we use. Hooker Electric's a good second. I don't have much experience with the other brands, but I can tell you the LP reels are stump pullers, and they are as reliable as it comes. It does not matter which model you have. They make a couple different ones. Point is just, again, when it comes to your tackle, do not shortcut yourself. You will be upset. Braid. our main line is 65 to 80 pound braid. Almost everything we did up to the last couple of years was 65 pounds. The biggest fish we've ever caught, biggest 6 or 7 fish we've caught, all in 65 pound braid. Technique makes a big difference. You don't have to take and put 80 pounds of heat to them the whole time. Brand wise, it's personal preference. It's what do you like? We used to fish Suffolks. That's pretty much all I fish. I've been on boats where they use the J braid or the spider wire. It works great. Again, personal preference. As far as the rods go, again, you can see the one we have up here, the Miami rod. That's actually our go-to. Again, any questions, Will LaShawn here, he's the one that built it. Love it. That very first fish you saw hanging up there, that rod, that was the first time we fished that rod on the boat. That was the very first bite we had. That was the very first fish we had. Man knows how to build a rod. I'll give him that. Your swivels. We use, I like Diamond Braid, our brand. Again, ball bearing swivels. I do not use snap swivels. Don't like them. The ball bearing swivels is how we do it. Hooks, I play for keeps. I like J hooks. Some guys use circle hooks, especially on the buoy rods. Hey, again, it's up to you. I have found that swordfish are extremely messy eaters. Half the fish we catch are hooked what we call outside in. Normally a fish eats it, the hook comes out that way. At least half of them are hooked this way, where they've overshot the bait. Your circle hook's not going to do that. J hook does. Large portion are foul hooked, whether it's in a peg fin, a dorsal. I mean, heck, we've had several where they're bill wrapped. It's lasted around the bill and it's come tight. The hook's not even in the fish. They're just messy eaters. Again, size of the hook, it depends on the size of the bait. I'd say our go-to is probably a 10-aught. Again, personal preference. Good monocutters and crimpers. That one I can't stress the monocutters. We try and keep 2 or 3 on the boat, buy a good brand. I think Momoy makes a really good set. In the time when things are heated and things are happening and you need to cut something, you better have something that works well. Gaffs, harpoons. This is what I think where a lot of people mess up. At least one good gaff, I prefer 2, but the key factor is harpoons. We have a harpoon that we actually was bought from down at RJ Boyle's shop. He's, in fact, I think I was talking to you earlier about it. Our harpoon setup, we have 2 of them. We keep 1,000 feet of rope in a basket. Fish comes up. We have never lost a fish because we threw the harpoon too many times. When you get your shot, take it. A lot of guys will have harpoons that are made out of carbon fiber. They're light. They don't really throw well. They don't really, go through the water far. Buy a harpoon that's set up for it. My dad, if anybody knows him, Chris Langel, they are 100% aware that he likes sharp knives and sharp hooks and sharp tips. He files everything. It does not hurt to have, be prepared on that. Little eye hooks, little hand hooks. That's really going to be for when the fish is actually at the boat. A lot of people like to reach down and grab that bill and hang on. You get the snot beat out of you. Let him do his thing, get him over the boat, and that makes a big difference. The rigging floss and needles, that's mainly if you're the guy that likes to rig his own bait. It comes in handy on the wind-ons where we like to clip our leads. It's a wax loop. I have watched several times as the lead breaks off and you got to retie. Again, it's just being ready. We started using Dacron, or not Dacron, but I guess it'd be Dacron, to make our wax loops for our leads. But you can't beat a wax, the plain old wax line here, which I have up here. And that's a pretty simple knot you can tie. It's a little loop, you just clip it right on with a long line lead. Lights. Everybody's seen the big deep drop lights? They work. Problem is out here we have fast current. The whole idea is to be hydrodynamic. We like to use the little diamond lights. Again, color, personal preference, it doesn't matter. I've used blues, whites, greens, multi, reds, purples. They all work. Every one of them works. The idea is with those lights, it helps him find that bait down in the middle of nowhere. Leads. I fish between 8 and 12 pounds. 99.9% of the time, I'm fishing a 12-pound lead on the tip rod. My buoy rod, I'll vary, depending on where I think the thermocline is, where I think the bait is. Again, it goes back to having a good bottom machine where you can see what's going on. Rubber bands, a 12-pound mono. That's how we attach our lights. On the wind-on leader, we have this. I like to fish 2 diamond lights. Some guys will take and fish, 2, 3, 4, whatever. We fish 2. A lot of guys will take and run the mono right through the light and rubber band on there. We like to use 12-pound mono and basically have a little dropper on it. Comes up, grab the light, you can snap it off or cut it off easy. It's just, that's our preference. Wind-ons, that's one of the more crucial part of your setup. We've always fished 150-foot wind-on, 250 pounds. I know a lot of guys will fish shorter, longer. They'll fish anywhere from 100 pounds to 300-pound wind-ons. 250's just been a go-to. It's worked great. I've never noticed a difference between that being 250 pounds and a bite ratio or a change if you use lighter leader and things like that. Never noticed a change. Why shortcut yourself when you're that close to the fish? My leader. So from the main line of the braid to the wind-on, then we have a leader. I like to fish 6 to 8 foot leader. It's 300-pound mono is what we use. Everything is crimped. I do no knot tying except for the braid to the wind-on. That's a cat's paw connection. It's what I call 100% knot. If your knots are right, it will not break. Terminal failure is something that we don't accept. That is the fastest way to get one of us upset. Again, don't cheap out. Do it right. Baits. These are just 2 that I've rigged myself. It's a dolphin belly. The other one's a bonita belly. I am telling you, if it swims, they will eat it. I have tried a laundry list of different baits. I get bites on all of them. Especially if you're new to it. Use a bait that's hardy. Cuda belly, dolphin, bonita, particularly the cuda and the dolphin, it's tough as nails. They come up, if anybody's ever billfished, you see how aggressive a marlin or sailfish is. Swordfish is doing the same thing. He's beating the heck out of it down there. A tough bait that's stitched well, put together well, you're going to have a much better chance. I personally love ladyfish for bait, but they're soft. So you better hook him the first time. You'll find with most baits that aren't fresh, bonita's probably the one that does it the most. As he gets older, it gets mushy. He'll hit it, he'll suck most of the meat right off of it, and you'll come back with this pile of mush, and it has nothing to do with it. It's a lot of effort to go out there and have him hit it and then not eat it. It stinks. Skirts, again, personal preference. I like to match the moon. Big moon, bright moon, I like a light skirt. Yes, sir?
You didn't mention squid, and that seems to be a popular thing.
A lot of guys use squid, we don't.
You don't?
We don't use it. If it's not stitched right, what will happen, he'll come up and he'll hit it. If you don't have the head of the squid to the body stitched well, he'll knock the head off. You'll come back with the body of the squid, no head, no tentacles, and no fish. A lot of guys use it, we don't. It's just not in the fast current. In California where we fished, we've used it before. We've had hookups out there. Unfortunately, I've never caught one in California. I've seen one on the surface, and everybody knows the tax man. They think it's a shark. Well, over there it was a seal. I kid you not. It was a little fish, but nonetheless. Everything that we have here, you can buy from a tackle shop. Buy from a local tackle shop. I'm a firm believer in a local tackle shop. Buy local, shop local. Their White's Tackle is going to have everything that you need. They're going to carry the quality products that you're going to want. I'm telling you, do not shortcut yourself on your tackle. As far as rigging baits, I can do that all day long. That's a totally different discussion on how to do that. But come see me afterwards. I'd love to go over it with you. Crew. There are guys that are wildly successful at this that do it solo. More power to you. I'm a stress ball out there when it happens. When I'm by myself, I could imagine how terrible that would be. Ideally, 3 or 4 people. You have your driver, who, by the way, is responsible for 90% of your tip rod bites. I'll explain in a little bit. you have the guy that's running the reel. You typically have one guy that runs the harpoon, and if you have you have the ability, a fourth guy, to run the other harpoon. Again, we fish with 2 harpoons. What people don't understand, and why I think they miss most of the bites, they're just not paying attention. The way we do it on our boat is, and ask anybody that's fished with us, someone is staring at that rod tip all day long. I want to say we've had, bites that we got there at daylight on a summer day, and it's 7:30, the sun's going down, and finally it went doink. It can happen like that. I've had it to where we've dropped the lead, pulled it out of the mud, and there he was. You got to be ready. Again, if I see the bite, you'll know it. Game day. Here we are. We're prepped and ready. We got everything ready to go. Basically, the setting up and dropping. I fish with my dog from time to time too.
What's he do?
He found a whale one time.
He did. He did actually. It was so funny. He was sitting there, and the wind was in our face. He stood up, started acting funny, and he's sniffing like, typical dog caught a wind of something. We couldn't figure out what he was looking at. Next thing you know, we looked down, and I thought it actually was a blue marlin because of the color of it, but it was a little, was it a minke whale?
Yeah, it's a minke whale.
Little minke whale. It was really cool. That whale hung out with us.
I like that.
He hung
Like
out
45 minutes.
Yeah, 45 minutes to an hour. It was pretty cool. And then he swam off. Fishing grounds. Again, I've told several people this. There is no secret spot. I promise you. Depth is something we like to focus on in most cases. I've got up here 1350 to 1750. I've fished as shallow as 1100. I fished as deep as 2300 feet. Something you got to keep in mind. The deeper you go, the more line you have out. The more line you have out, the more bow in the line, the harder he has to hit that bait to see that bite. I want to say probably the vast majority of all the fishing we do, 1450 to 1600 feet of water. The idea is when we get there is we like to, again, we got a good bottom machine, look at it. Can you see the bait? Can you see a thermocline? What do you see? If it's barren, chances are you're going to have a harder time getting a bite there.
What do you mean by thermocline?
You'll see typically 2 different, what we call thermocline. I usually see 2 of them. The Gulfstream itself is, on average, you'll see it 500-600 feet thick, which a good machine is going to help you determine do you have a thick current, slow current, or a thin current actually. Depending on the current, speed, and thickness, you're going to have a different amount of revolutions off the rod, which again helps you know where you're at when you're fishing. I'll get to that a little bit more in a second. But a lot of times you'll see on the bottom machine, down to the bottom, and I'm talking it could be from 20-30 feet off the bottom to 300 or 400 feet off the bottom. You'll see another thing of fuzz. Only thing we can guess is bait, squid, something. If there's food there, chances are they are there. Any other fishing or any type of fishing or any type of hunting, I think that's a kind of a common occurrence. However, I will tell you, I have fished where there's absolutely nothing on the bottom machine, and we have caught fish all day long. I have fished where there's stuff all over the bottom machine and not a sniff. It happens. I don't have a rhyme or reason to it. When you pull up to the fishing grounds, one of the first things we always do is put the boat neutral and stop. What's the wind doing? What's the current doing? I like a fast drift. I like it when I look at the bottom machine and we're dead still doing nothing, and the boat's moving 4.5, 5, miles an hour or more. That's just a personal preference. I think if you cover more ground, better chance of finding your fish. The main thing too, when you're stopping those, where's the wind out of? Now granted, in South Florida, your predominant wind is a southeast wind. You're going to fish your tip rod on the left side of the boat, on the port side of the boat. As the driver, it's easier to drive into the wind, into your force, than it is driving with it. You can drive it easier. If it's a west wind, well, then you fish the other side. It's pretty simple. Deployment. You can do this several ways. I've been on different boats that do it different ways. You can do the buoy rod first, then the tip rod. You can deploy the tip rod and then the buoy rod. We almost always deploy the tip rod first. Like I said, 95, 98%, probably more of our bites and our fish come off that tip rod because I can see it and I can react to it. Get the bait in the water that's going to do most of the work for you. Get it in there first. That's how we do it. How you do it. This is not complicated, but it can be. Remember, the Gulf Stream is moving from south to north at whatever speed. Typically, I like to deploy the tip first, get the boat going north, again on the compass, roughly 0 degrees on the compass. It doesn't have to be, dead perfect. It's not rocket science as far as that goes. Get your bait overboard, stretch it all out, get your lead on there. Don't make the same mistake we've made, zero the reel at the lead. You put it in auto and you're not paying attention and it sucks the lead up into the tip, you have a bad day. The idea is we like to get 6-7 miles an hour, 8 miles an hour, a little bit of white water behind the boat. Lead's clipped on, dump it in free spool. Hit 100 revolutions on the reel, on the LP, I lock the spool up, count the 2 or 3. I do that consistently up to 500 feet. The idea is you're stretching everything out, because if you just throw it overboard and dump it, it'll fall back on itself, wrapped up, and you fish for an hour, and your bait's wrapped up in your own line. At 500 feet, again, the boat's still driving north. At 500 feet, whoever's driving, I say put the boat in a spin. And by in a spin, I mean you turn it on a dime. That's how I like to do it. As soon as it turns around, the reel goes in a free spool until you hit bottom. You'll know when you hit bottom is that reel's, going off, and all of a sudden it stops. It's pretty obvious. When we hit bottom, we typically lock it up, pull it up, 50, 60 feet, and stop and watch. The idea is, as everything's settling, and that current is, when you see it in a little bit, I actually have a little drawing of it, I'll explain, but there's a big bow in the line. You got to sit there and fish and get the bait where you want it to be. We typically fish 100 feet off the bottom, hence the 150-foot wind on, which I'll explain in a little bit. Have everything ready as you're deploying. Have your crew doing it. Like I said, I've spent 12 hours, 13 hours staring at a rod tip all day and nothing happened until the last minute. I have also, the lead hit the bottom and pulled it out of the bottom, and he zing-pounded it right there. If you're anything like me and you get excited easily and turn into a ball of mess, I like to be prepared before that, because at that point I can't think straight half the time. My brother, my wife, and everybody will attest to that. Make sure your crew knows what they're doing. If you're the gaff guy or the harpoon guy, be ready on that. Keep the deck clear. If you're a guy on the reel, you and the driver, you're talking to one another the whole time. What's the fish doing? How's it going? Just communication is key. Like I said, the driver is 90% or more of the tip rod bite. How that works is your drift speeds, because you're trolling. That's what you're doing. We're trolling for these fish. No different than a kingfish or anything else. I don't like to do anything under a mile and a half. So as you're sitting there drifting, keep the boat, keep it moving, which you're actually drifting to the north. You're facing south. Well, you'll see that in a second. I don't mind a 3 mile an hour drift, a 3.5 mile an hour drift. I don't mind it. But again, you get bit, you better be ready, because as you're pulling from him, the faster you pull it from him when he hits it, you got to be able to react. 90-degree angle of the line. Pretend you were on the center console where that rod holder is supposed to be, just next to the driver, slightly after. If you're driving the boat correctly, you're going to have 90 degrees from the rod tip straight down to the water line, straight down, even though that bait might be 800-900 feet in front of you. This is actually a good example of it. That boat's pointed south. We're drifting to the north. When we get down there, and again, if you look, and this is not a great example because that line's straight up and down, there's actually a big bow in the line. The whole idea is as we're driving, and that is a good example of exactly what the whole rig looks like. You got your main line, bimini twist to a cat's paw connection. We have our a long line clip that keeps the lead on at the wax loop. The 2 lights, again, our diamond lights, I keep it 10-15 feet at the first light. The second light goes another 10-15 feet past that from the swivel. The idea is if that line is 90 degrees up and down, you can tell if you're driving it correctly, because almost always the load on the rod. If you're off of it, if you're not right up on it, that rod might be stuck out like that. It may be underneath the boat, but what happens is it puts an unnecessary load on the rod. It's harder to see the bite. So you're sitting there watching it, and if it's straight out like that, you might not see him hit it. But if you're up and down, and again, the swordfish bite is, you can't miss it, but it looks just like a snapper bite. It's just a simple boom. Watch the rod tip. Again, I cannot stress that enough, guys. Someone has to be watching it. If you miss the initial bite, in our experience, 50% chance you're going to miss the fish. It's not coming back. What'd you see? Typical swordfish bite, one that what we call a classic swordfish bite, is just like I described as a snapper peck. You're watching it and it goes boom. When it happens, there's no mistaking it because you've been staring at this thing the entire day. However, they don't always do that. Every now and then, what we feel, he swims by the bait at mock Jesus and he misses it. A lot of times you'll see that the rod will take and wobble. Or on a rougher day, as the boat goes up and down, you'll watch it, it's in a pattern. And maybe when it's supposed to come up, it stays loaded. Or maybe when it's supposed to low down, it stays up. You got to watch for something that's different. How to react. Depending on what you see, we do different things. If it's a classic swordfish bite and we know it's him, I might take and dump that reel and free spool for 40 or 50 feet and lock it back up. If it's something I'm not sure of, reel it up and take it from him. You ever taken a piece of candy from a spoiled brat? They get mad. Tease him, make him mad, make him come after it. You'll know when he's there, almost always. Because again, you've been watching the rod, you know how it acts. What you're going to see is after whether you've let it back to him or peeled it up, almost always that rod will instantly start just doubling over. When that happens, the way we like to do, and again I'll go over it a little bit, but we put the heat to him. It's not for long, but we put the heat to him. When you get bit, mark the bite. I think I was talking to Phil earlier. From, I'd say, North Jupiter to past Sebastian, the bottom out here is flat. There's nothing there. There's no contour. You get further south, Miami, West Palm, you got some bottom. There's nothing out here. What we've noticed is you'll have different types of bottom. Mud, hard bottom. You get bit, and on our machine, we'll go back and refish the same drift again, and we'll find that it went from mud to hard bottom, or hard bottom to mud. Something's there. I have no idea what it is, but there's a reason he's there. Mark the bite. Whether you catch the fish or miss the fish, reel up, run right back up the same line and drift it again. They're like any other billfish. They usually are, it's the pack mentality. Everybody ever sailfish before? You mark one and suddenly there's 2 or 3 others with it? That has happened to us. In fact, my brother and I can tell you stories where we're drifting, get bit, whether we caught the fish or not, run right back up, mile ahead of it, nothing, get within 500 feet of that bite, boom, there he is again. Is it the same fish? I doubt it, but I don't know. But it works. That's all I can tell you. This is going to be a video. My father is, well, you'll hear him. There's 2 bites in this video. If you're not up close, it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt. My dad will definitely give away the first bite, at least the way he talks and acts, but you're going to see how we react to it. This video is from a few years ago and a few pounds lighter, but you'll see my brother and I, you should see my brother and I in it. Want to hit play? There's one.
Hit it. Come on, baby. The sword bite coming out. There it was.
See how subtle that was? If you're not paying attention, 100% you're going to miss it. That's what I consider a mostly classic bite. It was pretty soft, but it was pretty obvious, and boom.
I'd pay good money for a bite like that. I ain't never had a bite that good.
That was it coming up though. It was already on. It was coming up. It was already on.
That fish we ended up catching, it wasn't a big one, but that right there is what I call a classic swordfish bite. And that's the one, again, when I'm 40 miles offshore, you'll hear me on land screaming. Next one.
Did he turn the reel on?
Yes.
I wasn't looking.
Basically, when we got bit the first time, that was more subtle than what we'd like to see. So he's taking it from him. Take the candy from the spoiled brat. Make him mad. Fire him up. Second bite did the same thing. A few minutes later, I think we got, the idea is if he's not eating it on the way up, drop it back to him and see if that changes. Sometimes like the sailfish, they eat it on the way back. Sometimes like the marlin, you gotta take it from him, he'll come up and pile on it. When you're tight, I think this is probably where most daytime sword fishermen disagree with one another, is how to fight them, drag, boat setup, things like that. When we get tight, typically, the first initial bit, that rod goes to park, or that reel goes into park. And I've never tested it, but I've had to guess 65, 75, 80 pounds of heat to him for a very, very, very short time period. The idea is, as you're reeling, and he's there, and you got all that heat to him, there's no give. Remember, there's a big bow on the line. I know the previous slide it showed it up and down, but I'm telling you, there's a big bow on the line. The idea is you're getting all of that line out, and you're getting a direct connection to the fish, and you're driving the hook. That's what we call it, driving the hook. If you're, babying the drag, you might not drive it. We found that side of things, when you absolutely pour the heat to the fish, you tend to stay glued to him. That's something we have found. Once he's hooked, that drag comes back down to, again, I've never actually tested it. Everything I do is by feel. But if I had to guess, 15 to 20 pounds, depending on what he's doing during the fight. It's not much in the grand scheme of things when you're fighting a 300 or 400 pound fish. Stay with your job. I'm bad about that. I like to look over as I'm driving and leave the wheel. I'm really bad about that. The idea, as you're fighting, what's the fish doing? If you're dead boating, you get hooked and everybody starts high-fiving and they just push the buttons on the reel. Sometimes that works. Sometimes the fish decides he's going to go east. Follow him with the boat. I may have 10,000 feet of line on that reel, but it doesn't mean that I want to give him any more than I have to. That particular picture actually is from February of this year?
March.
March of this year. We actually ended up catching that fish right there. That fish was, and that's, fight mode right there. I think that fish was, give or take, 230, 240 pounds. As the fish is swimming around, you've heard people saying he slacked you up, you're slacked off. Sometimes the fish, they want to play tug of war with you. It's cat and mouse, the back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes he decides that he wants to bring the fight to you. That's why I said earlier, make sure you're ready. Because if he decides he's going to swim the lead, is what we call it, he's going to be there in about 3 minutes. I hope you're ready. A lot of times when they get on the surface and they're swimming around, and it doesn't matter how big he is, that is the best chance you have of killing that fish. As I said earlier, throw the harpoon. That's what it's there for. When he's swimming around, like I said, we have never missed a fish because we threw it too many times. In fact, several times we've come unglued from the fish on the hook, and we're looking down at him and said, well, heck it, throw it. And landed the fish that way on basically a free harpoon after he's pulled the hook. I think the first time my brother and I ever fished with a guy that taught most of the stuff we do, Jeff Walls, if anybody knows who he is. We pulled the fish off at roughly 150 revs off the reel, which is 300 feet from us to the fish. My brother and I threw our hands up and said, well, what the heck's going on here? Jeff was calm and cool. He said, just keep driving. So we did. Next thing you know, Jeff looks over, picks up the harpoon, and throws it. And guys, I kid you not, I counted to 6 Mississippi, and the rope stopped. Jeff just looks at it and goes, I guess I hit him. was a 100-pound fish, but he hit him right through the gills. I couldn't believe it. And my brother and I just looked at each other like, is this serious? Foe the harpoon. Slow and steady wins the race, though. Like I said, swordfish are extremely soft. If anyone's ever seen one, touched one, been around one on the dock, they do not have hard mouths. They are not a hard fish. You grab a bonita or a tuna, and I mean it's like grabbing a piece of concrete. Swordfish are the opposite. Hence why I think a lighter drag, once you're tight on them, works really well. If you really put the heat to them, chances are there's a good chance, especially if he's foul hooked. Remember, most of these fish, they haven't eaten it. They're hooked because they overshot it, and they're a mess. They're wrapped up in it. We've pulled many hooks before thinking that we're just going to winch him right to the boat because I got an electric reel. It doesn't work that way. Slow and steady. If he wants to run, let him run. Like I said, you got 10,000 feet of line, where's he going to go? Just follow him. I know this is a crazy thing to say, but celebrate your fish. Most people that do this, at least with us, we set out to go do this. It took us 10, 11 trips. We probably had $15,000, maybe $18,000 of money tied up in our first fish. If anybody's ever fished with me, they'll see that I usually have too many kids on the boat. Celebrate your fish. It's a feat of a lifetime, whether he's 30 pounds, 15 pounds, 400 pounds, it does not matter. You did something that most people don't have the ability or the drive to do, or the luck for that fact. I want to say pretty much every fish we've been a part of, other than a couple of them, are my kids, my nephews have been a part of it, and I think it's one of the driving forces of this club, from my understanding, to pass on fishing, the outdoors. I have found that kids that I've taken that have never been on a boat before, and they see a swordfish, or any fish for that fact, it makes a memory of a lifetime, let alone something that, again, most people will never see in their life. That's it. If you guys want the PowerPoint, we have it. I can email it. My phone number's up there as well. You can call me, text me. I will be abundantly clear. If you ask me to come fishing with you, I will love to do that. There's two things you need to know. I do air conditioning. If it's hot, I'm busy. I probably will tell you no. If you invite myself or my brother, chances are I'm going to go, is there room for 4 or 5? Because again, I almost always go with my wife, kids, nephews. I'd love to go. I'd love to show you everything that we know. Just be prepared. If you ask me, there's going to be a pile of kids on the boat. Questions, comments, complaints?
Some of the lingo I went over my head. You said tip and then the other float? Or-
Buoy.
The buoy rod.
Yeah.
So the buoy rod, I call it a dummy rod. The tip rod is what's right there next to you. You're running that reel. You can see the bite and do everything. The buoy rod, when you deploy everything, again, the way we do it, tip rod's down, we throw the buoy, the bait out the back, let it drift out the back. That buoy clip, we have different splices, different depths. On the spool I have up here, there's actually 2 different splices. I think one's at 14 and change, and the other one's actually pretty deep. It's like 1850. We have I call it, it's a buoy float. It takes 10 pounds to pull it under. It's a big orange float. Some of the guys like to put flags on them so they can see them. Clip it on there and send it out to Kingdom Come. That's a buoy rod. That right there, you don't know what happens until you reel it up. Most of the time, if you're lucky, you'll see the buoy as it's dragging along. It'll pop up on its side because the fish is swimming it. It'll disappear. Or every now and then, which I have seen, which is rare, as you're driving, the buoy drives past you. You might have a fish. Yes, sir.
What percentage of the time do you get a bite, and what percentage of the time do you come back with a fish?
I would say our average, the average amount of bites per trip, I'm not sure of, but what I can tell you, we've calculated several times just spot checking it. We are 1.1 fish a trip. That's what our average works out to. I might go 3 or 4 trips with nothing out of 6 bites. Then I go 6 trips and have 7 or 8 fish.
What would you say your probability of coming back with a fish is? What's your success rate?
1.1 fish per trip is the best way I can describe that.
Okay.
Out of 10 trips, at least 90%, 80%. Remember, it took us at least a year and a half to figure that out.
Right.
It took a very long time. Yes, sir.
What do you feel is the best time of the year and where do you fish? From Sebastian to Jupiter is what you're saying?
Depends. See,
In this area?
this is a tough one because everybody has a friend that's a fisherman, and everybody knows what that means. I caught him over here, you caught him over there in reality.
I mean, as far as winter or summer?
Summer, typically you're gonna have a lot more bites, a lot more opportunity, but on average, they're smaller fish.
Okay.
Early spring, February, March, April, and October, so your late fall, those are the months we've caught the biggest fish we've ever caught, consistently in those months. The way we normally do it is I got several friends, actually I have a lot of friends that do it. You start hearing, hey, big fish was caught here, big fish was caught there. I don't care if it's caught in Jupiter, I don't care if it's caught in Sebastian, just go. I typically find that there's a bunch of them that come through here, in a 2 or 3 week, stint during those months. You hear a big one caught, go. Chances are you'll get your shot. What's up, bud?
How do you mark the spot on your machines?
Hit man overboard. Yes, sir.
If you're just prospecting, what do you look for to start?
Current is the big one. Like I said, I like to see a certain speed, which there's not much control over that. When you get there, it is what it is. Again, when you're looking, if you have the right bottom machine, we were talking about earlier, I want to say the center console we fish has a 1 kW transducer. They're Semrad machines. They are neat machines. What I like to look for is, again, fuzz. Anything that's down towards the bottom, 50 feet to 200 feet off the bottom, it'll look just like a thermocline from the Gulf Stream itself. It'll be a thick bar down there of fuzz. Again, it just depends on how you tweak your machine. How well can you see it? That's what I like to see. But like I said, there's days we get out there, no matter where I'm at, there's either nothing marking or you'll see, or the opposite the next day, it's everywhere. Just fish. You're there. You just ran 30 miles. Just spent a lot of gas and a lot of time getting together. Fish.
What are you doing all that meat?
Our immediate family, between my dad and my brothers, there's 19, fixing to be 20?
There's 21. It's 21.
21. My little brother's going to be a dad again. There's 21 of us. I have a lot of friends that my dad likes to call. It makes good favors. These big fish you see here, I might catch one of that size once a year, once every, probably maybe 2 a year. Been pretty lucky this year. We've had a couple over 200, one that was almost 3. Most of the average size fish that we catch, those 100 to 125 tons. That's your average fish. We used to nighttime a lot. I'll never do that again. Our hookup in size was much, much less. I will not nighttime fish. Don't invite me. Yes, sir.
So, did you say that you drop 500-foot increments as you're going, 8 knots, head north, and then drive your sinker, your weight down into the bottom, and then come up off the bottom 50 feet?
You're driving north. At every 100 foot, you lock it up.
100 foot.
The idea is just stretching it out so it doesn't fold back up on itself. At 500, you turn the boat back south because that's how you're drifting.
Got it.
Once you hit the bottom, the first time I bring it up 50, 60 feet. Because in about 10 minutes, you're going to drop it back and you're going to drop it back another 200 or 300. That's that loop getting in there. You'll find that when you hit the bottom, say 1,500 feet of water, I might have 1,800 revs off the reel. By the time I'm fishing, I like to keep my bait 100 foot off the bottom, give or take. By the time you're fishing, remember that lead hit of 1,800, and you're there, you might be fishing at 2,100 revs. So it's critical, the deeper you go on a thick current, you have a lot more line out. It becomes that much, harder to see the bite, and you're that much further away from the fish.
So you set a timer and then drop it down another 50 every 3 minutes?
I wouldn't say a timer, but yeah, every couple minutes, what we do, we call it find the bottom, checking bottom. Hit bottom and after you do that 3 or 4 times, as you pulled up that 50 feet, one of those times you're going to drop it back, and if you're driving correctly, You're gonna drop it back 50 feet exactly, and you go, okay, so we're there. At that point, bring it up to 100 foot, bring it up to 125 feet, whatever it may be. Yes, sir.
What do you mean by thick and thin currents? 'Cause like,
So I'm no scientist, so bear with me with my poor explanation. The Gulf Stream, as it's running, there's be days out there when I say it's thin. On the machine, you'll see the thermocline. It may only be 300 feet, but it's all in butt. There's days where that thermocline might be at 600 feet. You'll notice, depending on those days, where that thermocline is, how many on the same depth. If it's a thin current, I might at 1,500 feet, I might have 1,800 feet off the reel. If it's a thick current, I might end up with 2,400 feet on the same exact setup. Because it's a thicker current, and there's more time for it to push on your line, you get a bigger bow in it.
We call it the blue veil.
Definitely. You'll find when you're fighting them too, where that thermocline is, a lot of times if he swims that lead, you get that lead off, and he realizes what the gig is, and the gig is up, he goes right back to that thermocline. And then it's a tug of war and good luck. Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know if anybody else is wondering this, but what's your favorite swordfish recipe?
The one my wife cooks.
Good answer.
Is there any reason to have a flying gaff on a boat?
Not when you have harpoons.
There you go.
I know in California, it's weird state laws, but you can't, when you're sword fishing, you can't have a harpoon, so they have flying gaffs. But out here, we have a good governor, good state rules. Yes, sir.
so, once you do your 500 foot going 7 knots with the current, you spin.
Yes.
And you drop to touch bottom. Where you put your speed at after the spin when you're heading south but going north?
Do your spin. You want to be careful because you don't want to run right back up on where you dropped it. What we like to do is the boat turns, now we're going back against the current, right? I'm just bumping along real slow until that lead hits. Once the lead hits and you pick it up, you're going to notice your line's going to all of a sudden shoot out in front of you, put the boat in gear, and get caught up to it. At that point, the whole idea, again, of the driver is to get that line 90 degrees to you at the boat, not stretched out over there and underneath it, but you want it straight up and down.
And so you're making north the whole time.
The whole entire time, you're still drifting north. Even though you're driving south, you are still drifting north. You're trolling, and what most people don't understand is that bait's not behind the boat like you think it
I was
is.
just wondering on the dump as you're
Yeah.
at the bottom if you ever make headway or if you're still.
I turn around and I bump it real slow until everything stretches out and gets tight, and then I'll sit there and drive the boat.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Yes, sir.
When you're baiting the fish, you get that first bite, you just free spool it.
Depends on how it is. If it's what I call a classic swordfish bite, I dump it in free spool and dump it 40 or 50 feet as fast as I can and lock it up. A lot of times he'll lock it
I've got a
up.
lot of swordfish up north, these canyons, and, I mean, I stood there for half an hour with a rod, free spool, just, you drop it, come back, drop it, come back. I mean,
They're
how do you
finicky,
really
aren't
get
they?
that much line out? Cause we never fished
What we
lower
do,
than 250 feet up there.
what we'll do is when we again, let's say he hits it and you free spool, nothing happens. Usually a minute or two, I'll start reeling. Again, the whole idea is take the candy from the kid that's being a pain in the butt. He realizes that bait's getting away from him. He'll come up and he'll
I guess
hit it
if
again.
you foul hook a lot of them, you know, he drops it, and you'll snag them, you know.
I would say more often than not, they're hooked outside in. They run up on that bait, they're messy eaters, they overshoot the bait, the line gets in their mouth, and they're hauling butt away from it, and that hook comes back and whoosh, and it's outside in.
You don't use any gauze or electrical tape on your hooks?
Nope.
We used to do that up north so they didn't rip out of their mouths.
We don't, someone probably does. I'm not, again, our techniques and what we do, I'm not saying it's the best there ever was. It just works really well for us.
So like you say, the mouths are real soft.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
Trying to keep the hook in the mouth is tough.
If you ever try to pick one up by the gills, you literally will rip his gills and damn near rip his head right off of him. They are soft.
How do you feel about store-bought prep bait?
I'm gonna be careful how I word this.
Check them before you.
Yeah. So, and I've made some of the similar mistakes, but the only tackle shop that I know of, and by the way, I shop for whites and everything. The only tackle shop that I know of that makes bait consistently well, that doesn't have problems, is the RJ Boyle shop down south. I have fished with other well-known names, got bit, got it back up. I have a skirt and a hook and there's no bait to it. That's unacceptable. If it's stitched correctly to that hook, he may beat the snot out of it. He may come back and you'll come back with the bait stretched out, but it's still there. There's something there. We have made the mistake of rigging a fish before and we missed the eye of the hook. Bit it, got brought out, and I have a skirt and a loop and no hook. That was a bad day. There's a mistake to be made in this game. We've done it.
You rig your own baits?
Yes. That's
Sew the belly together up around the hook, or how do you secure it so it doesn't slide down the hook?
Depends on what bait you have. Like again,
Like there's dolphin bellies or cuda belly?
yes. So it's a whole nother discussion, but I'm happy to have it with you. But to make it simple, hook goes in the bait. You crimp your mono through it. I'll take and stitch it, the eye of the hook right there to the loop. I'll stitch the hook on the shank of the hook to the bait, and then I stitch it like a baseball all the way out. It doesn't have to be super pretty with stitching, but you gotta have it. You gotta take your time on that.
You mentioned skirts several times. You use skirts all the time on your baits.
One time we fished them naked and had no bites. I like the skirts because you can slide it on there. It makes it hydrodynamic and everything swims pretty.
Do you check make sure your baits aren't spinning?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every time before we deploy the bait, actually deploy it, we'll throw it over and I'll hold it there and I'll watch it swim. If it's not back there paddling, change it. Yes, sir.
How many baits do you bring per time?
6 to 8. Most bites we ever had one day was 7. We had 0 fish to show for it. That was rough. That particular day we pulled at least 2 off. We weren't paying attention to the fight. We walked away from the rod real quick. The rod swung over, hit the side of the boat. Zing pow, there it went. That was the same day, by the way. But typically 6 to 8 baits. I'd like to have at least 4 rigged. The old saying, match the hatch. If you get bit on a cuda belly on a green skirt, pull it on the cuda belly, and you don't have another green skirt, pull it off and stitch it on there real fast and send it back. It works. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Any bycatch?
Yes. So, threshers, we've caught big eye threshers, a couple of those. They're a nightmare to deal with. You think you hook bottom and then bottom moves. I know several people who have hooked bluefins doing this, which really stinks because you can't keep them out if they're a giant. Palm frits, which they are an ugly looking thing, but my goodness, are they good eating. Probably the coolest one before they banned and you were allowed to keep them, we caught a 634-pound mako right off Fort Pierce. He hangs on my dad's wall. That was his pride and joy, his pride and possession. I think he loves it more than he does his kids. Probably the weirdest one, a sailfish, believe it or not. He ate it on the way down. The lead stopped at like 400 revs from the boat, 500 revs after we turned, and looked over and there's a fish jumping. Oh, that's funny. Next thing, the line kind of started going to him. The 12-pound lead killed the fish. He smoked really good, but most bycatches, very minimal to be honest with you.
And I'm assuming you're not brining your baits, you're fishing them fresh?
Fresh. I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to have a big family, a lot of friends that fish. Hey, you going tomorrow? Give me a couple cudas. Barracuda is probably my favorite, just because it stinks, it's tough, and it's easy to get. Yes, sir.
Back to the buoy line. Did I get it right that you attach a loop to the line for the buoy hook at about 1,400 feet, you say?
Correct. So the same.
How do you make that attachment?
So it's the same way that we tie the wind-on leader to the braid. All I do is that when we're loading the line onto the reel, we count it. And I know what depth it's going to be on. So I take and tie a bimini twist on the braid. It goes to a cat's paw on the buoy splice. On the other side is another cat's paw, and we retie braid to that at whatever depth. And again, that's how that works. It's pretty simple.
You say 1,700 or something like that?
On that particular reel, or that spool right there, we have one at like 14 and change, and I have another one that we decided to try real deep at 18 and change. The thing is with the buoy, what people don't realize is when you're fishing the tip rod, you're driving it and you're dropping back to get to your where you're wanting to fish at. Again, typically it's 100 foot. That buoy, you have no idea where it's at. That's why I like to have different size leads and different size splices or different areas of splice. Run the buoy, no bite. Clip or heavier lead on there. Let fish a different water column. Some days it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Have you ever caught a squid?
Multiple, actually. And they are aggravating. If you think you see a very, very, very subtle swordfish bite, I mean, it's boom. But you'll notice, if you've been doing it for hours or enough trips, you're used to what the rod looks like. That rod's, normally bouncing up and down with the water, but it's got just a smidge of a load on there. After a little tiny peck, chances are it's a squid. And they make great appetizers. So yes, we've caught several. Usually they're about yay big. Questions? Anything else? Good? Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever had two swordfish on at the same time?
Several times. I have not been lucky enough to land both at once. The closest we had was we had two little ones close to the boat, landed the first one, pulled the hook on the other one.
Hey, Dan, you had a free swimmer.
Well, see, that's why I have her. So at least once, if not twice, we've had it where the big fish comes up, and almost always, if it's a larger class fish, there's a free swimmer with it.
Right there.
Actually, yeah, the bottom one there. That bottom picture, the big fish on the deck was a little over 400. Got her close to the boat. The next one comes swimming up next to it, and we force fitted a harpoon. It was old man in the sea style there. That small fish was like a 175-pound pumpkin, which I don't know if anybody knows the difference. Most swordfish meat is white. Like the birds that turn pink, the roseate spoonbills, they eat a special shrimp. The swordfish do the same thing. It turns their meat, I'm talking, if it's orange, I'm like pumpkin orange. I don't eat the white swordfish. I don't really like it. If it's pumpkin, but you're going to fight me for it. Yes, sir.
What color is the fishing line?
We almost always use bright yellow or bright orange because my eyes suck. I don't think it makes a difference. We've used blue, we've used pink, we've used yellow, we've used orange. It doesn't matter. At least, again, what can you see easy? That's how we do it. Yes, sir.
So when you fillet the swordfish, you ever find stuff in the stomach?
All kinds of goodies. It's amazing. Most of the fish we catch, their bellies are so engorged with whether it's whatever they're eating. Most of the time it's either all squid or what I call a lancet fish. I don't even know if that's the real term for it, but it looks like this. What would you describe it as? Like an eel body, a ribbon fish body with a barracuda head.
Yeah.
And there's usually piles and piles of them. I mean, it's like, how did he eat my bait? Why did he eat my bait? Because he's so engorged with it. Yes, sir.
Kind of off topic, but what kind of size class rods are those?
Will, can you help me?
Those are 100 to 120 pound unlimited.
We put a lot of heat on that fish up front, on the front side of that fight. I mean, like I said, I put that LP in park. And it's for about 5 or 6 seconds, but when that 130-pound rod reaches over and touches the water, you got some heat to them. Like I said, we back it off after 5 or 6 seconds pretty quickly, though.
What inlet do you like to go out of?
Mine, Fort Pierce. I'm lucky.
South first?
We our typical fishing grounds, honestly, I run 110 degrees, get to 1,500 feet of water and pull it off. Almost always with the way the weather works, you make your drift, and I usually drift through Vero, and the way the wind is, I come home on like a side or a falling sea. It's a comfortable ride.
So you come back through Sebastian, or you come back?
Always come back through Fort Pierce unless it's not rough. Yes, sir.
What kind of boat you got?
I don't own a boat. It's not mine. I'm lucky enough, again, blessed enough to have enough friends. My brother has a 33-foot conch. That's been a beautiful boat. My dad's always had several different contenders. He actually just upgraded to a 60-foot Bertram. You can catch him in anything. I don't remember who I was telling earlier, but I will tell you this. Even though that big boat's nice to run in and out of there, there is nothing better than a twin-engine, small center console to maneuver and do what you need to do. Does not beat it.
We're going fishing though.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Forever hold your peace. Appreciate you guys.